All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another great concoctic show at the end of the day with Chuck and Benji. Sit back, turn the music down, get your favorite drink, turn down the lights, and get ready for a truly engaging show. Tonight is titled, At the End of the Day, the Butthurt Edition. And I mean the butthurt. We hope that we piss off everybody in North America, Australia, Russia. I don't give a crap. It's going to piss you off tonight. So sit back and get ready to get butthurt. Now, couple of questions. Do you believe in an agenda so expansive that it would capture the reality to the global elite? What are your beliefs in regarding to disclosure or an alien agenda or awareness? What about Luciferianism, reality that is currently at play in our global elite? Tonight, Benji and I will be joining the one, the only, Andy Curtis. We will be diving into the unknown and the real reality behind topics such as disclosure, the Luciferian agenda, and much, much, much more, because there's a lot to talk about. Now, a little bit about Andy, and I know a lot of my listeners are probably chiming in right now because they were a little bit nervous that we weren't going to be able to get Andy back on the air, and I'm glad to have him tonight. He was born in Rome, New York, grew up in the mountains of the hills of upstate New York, Tug Hill area. He spent his youth engaged in training in several martial arts and wrestling, taekwondo. I can't even pronunciate the rest of it, Thai, kickboxing. You know what? I am a huge fan of Andy and his 2010 book, 1984 Redo. Say Hello to Big Brother. It was published by Author House. Be sure, if you have not done so, check that out, because there's a lot of great stuff in there. Andy is also went on to write 2 syndicated columns in the Examiner.com in the Fort Worth Martial Arts and Libertarian Examiners. He has written for the Counter-Terrorist magazine and is a regular contributor to the Journal of Tactics and Preparedness magazine. Now, with that, Andy, just like we've done the past few weeks, and it seemed to have gone very well, people are really excited about this. We're going to do what we call, at the end of the day, but we'll call it the Butthurt edition at the end of the day, icebreaker question segment. Are you ready?
I don't know if I'm ready for this, but let's try it.
Okay, let's see if I can get Andy Butthurt right at the beginning. Okay. What is your favorite book, and what are you currently reading?
Oh, boy. Honestly, my favorite book would have to be it's George Orwell's 1984. And what I'm currently reading right now is a book called Naked and Unafraid, Alone and Unafraid. That's what it is. And it's by a guy named Jason Hansen. Bits of just, all-purpose, general-use information that you can find yourself using in any survival situation. So it's pretty good stuff.
Very cool. Benji, you have to answer that question as well.
That is a very difficult question for me to answer because I really don't read a whole lot. I will bring up the last book that I did read. I have it right here. It actually happens to be Chuck Banks' book.
Oh, what a brown...
But I will be honest, it is, honest to God, the last book that I read. It's probably, just because of my busy schedule and everything, the first book that I've read in years. So I really don't read. I just don't have time. I'm too busy doing everything else. So
I feel honored that I even got you to read. That's awesome. Holy crap. Now, I'll go ahead and say my favorite book is 1984 Redo by Andy Curtis. Okay, if you haven't done so, be sure you purchase that book. And the reason I don't say that just to kiss up to Andy. Actually, I do, because I'm afraid he'll pop my head like a zit. And no, I'm just kidding. No, it's a great book because there are so many references detailed in, from the secrets and different, laws, rules, regulations when we look at our Constitution as well. And I think it's a great book. What am I reading right now? I actually don't have it on my table here, but I'm actually reading a book that discusses positive behavior interventions and supports and the reality that is the secondary education setting. Now, really boring, but it's going towards my PhD.
Wow.
Okay.
That was a fairly intense title.
Yes, it was.
I won't lie. It's not going to be my favorite book. Anyway. Okay, this time we'll start with Benji, and then we'll go to Andy here.
Ah, crap.
Okay. All right. What is a hidden talent of yours very few people know about?
Oh. A hidden talent that very few people know about. Well, honestly, as far as people who know me nowadays, I'm a singer. My wife knows this. Some of my close friends and family know, and I'm a bassist and a drummer.
Wow.
So, but it's not something I do very often. It's also not something I do very often in public anymore. So,
All right, Andy. A hidden talent of yours that very few people know about.
I don't know if it's a talent, but it's something that I picked up completely by, I don't want to say by accident, but yeah, kind of by accident. I'm a hypnotist. So, yeah, it's a long time ago. I believe in the power of hypnosis. So I participated in a program in the Army that made me a believer of hypnosis. And then later on, after a couple of combat tours, I found myself doing a lot of interviews, both in the field and up to 96 hours after capture. And I was looking for little tips and tricks that we could use in interrogation to try and, I don't know, get the opposition to kind of want to tell us the things that we're looking for, the answers that we're looking for out in the field. And after going through a lot of different, checking a lot of different venues, a lot of them being law enforcement venues, to see if we could attend some of their training, and we were shot down time and time again from law enforcement courses. I found a neurolinguistics course. It's in California. It's at the Hypnosis Motivational Institute. And I was like, hey, I sold my team stars. Like, you got to send me to this. And it's neurolinguistic programming. I'm going to be able to talk the pants off these bad guys, and we're going to get every bit of information we ever wanted to learn. Except I didn't account for a couple of things. Number one is the language barrier and your ability to use an interpreter or a translator. And number two, I'm sitting in the class probably within the first 10 minutes and like, congratulations, you just showed up to our basic hypnosis class. And I'm thinking, oh, my God. Team sergeant's going to kill me when I get back. So, yeah, learn hypnosis, and it works.
Hey, you know what? Andy's now my new guru. He's going to teach me hypnosis. I'm excited. No, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Now, me, a lot of people know that I'm a coach and I'm into sports and activities such as that, but very few would know that I won the John Philip Sousa Award in the state of Iowa in 1991, playing the trombone.
Wow.
I was also all-state music, choral music, 4 years. All-state, concert music, 4 years. And I can play that trombone pretty damn good. So not a lot of people know that.
Chuck, that's something you and I have in common.
Yeah?
Well, I played the slide trombone from the 4th grade to the 7th grade.
Wow.
And I'm proud to say that I stopped playing because everybody asked me to stop. So.
Okay, so here's something all three of us have in common.
No shit.
Because I played the trombone. I played both simultaneously, though. I played the baritone, euphonium in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. Then in 7th grade, when we were able to start jazz band, that's when I picked up the bass guitar and the slide trombone. And I played trombone in jazz band when I wasn't playing the bass guitar.
So what are the odds of this? Three guys that play the slide trombone.
Yeah, that's something that Benji had no friggin' clue.
Nope. And I also got the John Philip Sousa Award when I was a senior in high school, outstanding senior vocalist, and I was an all-state singer for 4 years in a row as well.
Wow.
So we got some more in common than we think.
Yeah.
Talk about a small world.
You're as young as my last pair of underwear, but it's one of those things. Anyway, okay, back to Andy. Who inspires you, and who do you inspire to be like?
Wow, that's a hard question because I'm inspired by a lot of people. I guess it's the little guy. I've always been a big fan of the guy who everyone least expects to be able to accomplish something, and then they just go out there and they get it done. So I've always been that way, and I'm still that way to this day. And it's the little things I'll see out there in real life. You know, I've done like 5K runs, and I see this handicapped person, and they're on like crutches, or they're on a walker or whatever, and it just fires me up. I'll completely like get amped up when I see that, and I'll just run by and cheer them on, and that kind of drives me. We got vets that are coming back. Some of these guys that are just not taking no for an answer, they're missing limbs, and it doesn't stop them. It doesn't slow them down. That fires me up. I get fired up when I see kids that come from pretty rough backgrounds where everyone kind of writes them off from the get-go, and those kids just they don't say no, and they just keep trekking on, and they'll go on to do great things. So that's what fires me up. It's the underdog.
Love that. Benji?
I'm sorry, I didn't even hear the question because I was writing down a question from. I didn't hear the question because I was writing down a question from the chat that I'm going to direct towards you real quick.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to interrupt our little segment here, and JoJo in the Facebook chat is asking for some advice, and I'm directing it towards you because I don't honestly know Andy's background in this. This is more along the paranormal line. She's asking some advice because she's being scratched and bruised at night when sleeping and has a very visible scratch on her throat.
Okay. The biggest advice that I can give is basically find that niche for you spirituality wise, whether that be Christianity or paganism or whatever you feel most comfortable with. Fill your entire complexion and your entire space with the white light of God, and blast that away. Because truly, we can use a lot of things. We can use a crucifix, a Bible, whatever. But truly, at the end of the day, you have to use your heart, your soul, and to be able to push that kind of negativity past. If that can't do it, and you can't do it, be sure that you get a hold of me. I am doing clearings and things like that, or I can put you in contact with somebody if you would feel more comfortable in the UK. 'Cause I know she's from the UK.
Okay. Well,
all right, now back.
Well, what was the question, Chuck?
Here it is. Okay, who inspires you, and who do you aspire to be like?
Ooh, that is a good question. And somewhat difficult, yet somewhat simple, because I have two people, excuse me, in my life, well, really three people in my life that have really inspired me. And really, all three of them are about the same, so I'd really like to aspire to be like them. One of them was my maternal grandfather, who's no longer with us, but he's the one I talked about actually on a previous show where he's the one who taught me to shoot. He's the one who taught me to fish. I'd only spend a couple weeks a year with them, but he was almost like a second father to me when I was out there. My father, the man who raised me, and my mother, both my parents. And it's just the people that they are, the way they raised me. That's the way I want to make sure I raise my children, with the morals and the standards that they raise me with. Because honestly, and it's not all this way, but I feel I see more and more generations losing some of those morals as we get older. And maybe it's just me getting old. Who knows? It could just be me getting old and looking at a younger generation like, man, I never had anything like that. What are you complaining about? But that's probably the best answer I can give for that question.
Good. Now, you know what? A lot of people inspire me. Ultimately, I look back to, what inspires me in reality is to be able to teach and shape and change the lives of children, not only in the classroom, but outside of the classroom. to be able to, just to be there for people, in that mannerism. I aspire to be, I used to say that I wanted to be like my dad or be like this person or that person. But ultimately, I'm aspiring to be myself. And I think that's an obstacle that I've went over, my entire life, my 45 years of existence, is to aspire to be like someone else when in trueness and fairness, I need to be myself. So I'm aspiring to be myself.
Nice.
3 days ago, I was talking with a guy, and one of my day jobs, okay, and he's like all of us, we all, life hits us all sometimes, and he's a guy who's who's divorced, and he basically got custody of his 2 children, and he was talking about all the things that he feels like he would do if he didn't have this responsibility of taking care of his kids. And he could always, send the kids to mom or whatever, but he knows it's the right thing to do to raise those kids and put them in the right environment. He's honestly setting himself aside for the better good of his children. And, I remember he said something that you just kind of hit on. He said, I'm 45 years old, he said, and I still haven't found myself or where I think I need to be. And I can remember sitting there thinking in my head, like, man, I'm pretty lucky because I guess I know who I am and where I want to be and exactly how I'm going to get there. And you said something that kind of reminded me of that conversation that we had the other day, and how many people out there don't know who they are exactly or where they're going. And I think what you said about yourself, that's probably the best thing anybody could do.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, I probably did the same thing. When I divorced years ago, and then I would marry my current wife, which going on 22 years. Anyway, I look back and I put everything on hold. Especially with my first daughter, and I did everything in my power to to make sure that I was there for her, to help those stuff out. And you know what, it's been a lifelong lesson, to find who you are, where you fit in with society, where you're going. And it's something that we all need to look back on and definitely reflect. But it's definitely something that's important. All right. Was that first question directed at Andy or Benji? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go to you, Benji. And here it is. What is one of your guilty pleasures?
Ooh. That is a very good question. That's a tough one. I'd have to say, honestly, just sitting back in a nice hot soaker tub with a hot cup of coffee and just relaxing after a long, hard day of work.
That's a very good G-rated answer.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it G-rated here. Just trying to keep it G. Jen in the Spreaker chat's like, no, don't answer that.
Andy, I'm coming to you. I'm hoping for at least a PG-13. Damn it.
Oh man. Well. Hey, look, I'm a man, so I'm just going to be honest with you, man. And 2 of my guilty pleasures, one of them I really don't do so much anymore. I used to say was fighting and fucking, and I don't fight so much anymore. So I guess it would have to be the second.
Okay. That's R-rated, but no, we're just...
It's fine. The show's marked as explicit. We're good.
I'm kind of embarrassed for even bringing that question up to answer, right?
I'm honest, guys.
Yes, and I love that. One of my guilty pleasures is that I always like to try to make everybody happy. Guilty.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a very difficult thing to try to achieve.
All right.
I can just throw this out there. through my guilty pleasure, you can make others happy. I'm just throwing that out.
This is a very good point.
Exercise. It's got all. Yeah. Anyway,
it's good cardio.
It is.
We could do a whole show on that. Anyway, I got a few more, and I think I already know Andy's. But what's your favorite curse word?
Well, I'm just going to say Andy's already said it, so we're going to keep this. Maybe we should keep this PG-13. They allow it to be said one time per movie. No. It depends on my mood. It really depends on my mood. It depends on if I've just injured myself or if somebody's just really pissed me off at work or what. But yeah, usually that's kind of my go-to.
Yeah. I think we can all three agree with that one.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay. First, I've got two more questions, and then we'll get into the seriousness and nuts and bolts of this show, which I'm sure everybody's like, hurry the hell up, Chuck. I said up, Chuck. Anyway. See, this will go for Benji first. Tell me the best/worst pickup lines you've ever witnessed or used.
Oh, my God. Okay, first off, as far as witnessed or used, we got to go back like 10 years at least. I haven't seen or heard anybody use pickup lines in forever. Oh. I'd have to say probably the worst, and it's not because it's bad so much as because it's so corny and it's so overused, is the "did you just fall from heaven?" one, whatever it is, because you must be an angel or something like that.
Ooh.
That's probably or did it hurt when you fell from heaven, or whatever the hell it is. That's probably the worst, just because it's so overused. I've heard some pretty raunchy ones, though.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to share those.
That'll be on another show. Anyway.
Yeah. Andy, you're up.
Oh, man. I'm trying to... Guys,
I see the gears turning there. I see them turning.
Well, I'm trying to keep this PG. I've lived a very colorful life, fellas, and I've been in some pretty rough places, and I've seen some pretty grotesque pickup lines. I guess the one that I've actually heard, and I just remember thinking to myself, like, did he really just say that? I'm sitting at a bar in Fayetteville, North Carolina, early 2000s, and I'm just kind of chilling. I'm there to drink. And I see this guy come up next to me, and there's a couple of good-looking gals sitting to my right, and he comes up, and I hear him say this to the chick, "You must be tired." And she says, "Excuse me?" He says, "You must be tired." He says, "Because, God, you've been running all through my mind." And I remember thinking, there's no way this guy just said this. And it didn't work for him. The girls just literally, picked up and moved.
Okay.
They walked away.
I got to interrupt you. I have to interrupt you. Because literally, my wife, who's another radio host on our network, and Jen, who's another radio host on our network, literally just went through the exact same thing. Jen asked my wife if her feet were tired.
Oh,
my wife, thinking it was an actual question, actually answered. And then, boom, there it was, because you've been running through my mind all day.
I witnessed it, guys. It was terrible. The worst one that I've ever witnessed was, hey, you got to swing like that in your backyard?
Oh, they're throwing a few out in the chat. I lost my number. Can I have yours?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
apparently, this one's a true story. Hey, baby, I play for the Chicago Bears. What's your name? He plays for the Bears.
All right. We're gonna go back into the seriousness with the final question here for Andy. Not for the night, but for this icebreaker segment. And I'm crying here because it's so damn funny. Everything thus far. Anyway, this is a good one. when you leave this world, how do you most want to be remembered?
I don't really think about it. I just, my girlfriend and I, we talk about this thing every once in a while, and the subject has come up, and I'm like, man, I just want to rest. I hope everyone just kind of moves on with their life and just is happy. I don't, remember me, don't remember. I just don't care really.
Wow.
That's kind of about where I am. But if I want to be remembered for anything, I want to be remembered for my kids' deeds, for everything that my children have accomplished, and that's it. I don't care about me. I don't care what people think of me as long as they think highly of what my children have achieved. That's all I care about.
Good. I just want to be remembered as a good guy that help people along the way. That's all I want to be remembered for. That's pretty good. Anyway, folks, I promise. Okay, 30 minutes it took to get through those questions, and it was a lot of fun actually. Andy, you got to admit this is unlike any other show that you've ever been a part of on here.
Oh, for sure it is. I got to say the F word.
Oh man!
I'm just kidding. I'm having a great time.
Now, Chuck, why didn't you tell me? I mean, I'm a little intimidated here because you didn't tell me that I was going to be helping interview Hugh Jackman's body double for Wolverine. I mean, the hair, it's totally Wolverine.
Now, don't they call you the Rabid Wolverine?
Yeah, it's it's a terrible nickname. I couldn't stand it. There's a long story behind that nickname. I'm so glad. I tried to get rid of that nickname so many times.
Man.
Oh man,
I'm
sorry. I couldn't help it.
Good,
I couldn't help it. I'm sorry.
It's all good. Well, you know what? Let's cut to the chase. Let's talk about what Andy Curtis has been doing here recently. I know that you catch the news, my friend.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going on in the world that's shaking stuff up. It's making true believers out of the people that used to think, oh, that's hokey pokey, whatever. I mean, what do you think about all these things? Every time you turn on the news, there's something that's popping out.
Hey man, I hate to be the guy that says this, but I told you so, and I said it a long time back. So I just, I know I don't have a huge following on Facebook, but I'll post these articles out there, and I'm always like, hey, are you surprised? With a question mark, because if you've ever followed what's going on, and I'm talking about if you've ever followed what's going on back, 100 years now, this isn't ground shaking. So, but what does shock me is, like, holy cow, it's all, like, coming out in the open now. And, like, really, as much as it's out in the open, it's not getting the effect that I thought that everyone would have towards this. So that's what surprises me.
Yeah, the ideology behind all the disclosure that's going on, the ideology behind the United States government putting together a team to look at extraterrestrials as a threat, and I know I kind of shifted gears from this Luciferianism or this Big Brother, all that sort of topics, but it's definitely a topic that I definitely want to hinge on tonight. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And I know that you've definitely discussed this with a ton of other people.
Okay, so first of all, I don't think you're shifting topics. I really don't. I think that they're tied together, and I think they're tied together in more ways than most people would ever think. I want to read something to you, if you don't mind, and it's the opening quote in one of the chapters of my book, and the chapter is "A New World Order: The Globalist Agenda," and I think this quote that I'm about to quote Henry Kissinger on it's going to tie a lot of things together here, if you don't mind.
Sure, right ahead.
So the quote, it says, "Today America would be outraged if UN troops entered Los Angeles to restore order," he was referring to the 1991 LA riot. He said, "Tomorrow they will be grateful," and this is with an exclamation point. He said, "This is especially true if they were told that there were an outside threat from beyond, i.e. an extraterrestrial invasion, whether real or promulgated," and he says the emphasis is mine, "that threaten our very existence. It is then that all peoples of the world will plead to deliver them from this evil. The one thing every man fears is the unknown, and when presented with this scenario, individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by the world government. And that was Henry Kissinger. Ronald Reagan, probably a decade before this, had said something very similar. And if you don't mind if I quote that real quick,
Sure.
I'm just going to pull this up because I have these notes on here that I got. And the reason I bring this up because they always refer to this outside threat, this extraterrestrial species that would basically put us at the bottom of the food chain that we've been on top of for so long. And they always the claim is that, oh, hey, when this happens, we're going to be begging for control. So Ronald Reagan says, and this is at the United Nations General Assembly of 21st September 1987. Okay, so it's like 5 years prior. He says, "Can we and all nations not live in peace? In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war?" So I think that, this whole idea of, a government putting out this idea that there's an extraterrestrial species out there that's a threat to us, I don't know. I think that that's a very feasible thing for them to do in order to achieve their agenda of a new world order, which they ultimately want.
And do you refer to this as one of the biggest false flags here? Red flag, so to say. I mean, do you think it's a false flag, or do you think that there's a possibility that we could be in cahoots, or do you think that these extraterrestrials have been around for a long time anyway?
Okay, so my personal opinion, and again, I don't have, I don't have an inside source on this. I don't have any kind of inside information, so I just want to throw that out there. My own opinion, based off from everything that I've seen, all the things that I've read, things that anyone can find out there on the open source, I think that we have been visited, and I think we've been being visited for a very long time. I think that my personal belief is, having read the Bible, having read other ancient religious texts, I think that some of the things that people once thought of as angels or even demons and devils in some cases, they didn't know how to explain what they were seeing, and it could very well have been visitors from another dimension or another world. I think that they've been visiting us since the very beginning of our time. And I think that there's a lot of explanations of things. If you go back to hell, the Book of Noah, or hell, even the Book of Enoch, which is one that wasn't permitted by the Constantinian revolution there that they had so many years ago. They talk about these other entities, having taught man the different secrets and so on and so forth. I personally believe, like Paul Hellyer, if you're not familiar with Paul Hellyer, the former Canadian Minister of Defense, he came out and said it. He's like the first world leader who ever came out and said, we've been visited. And he basically accused the United States government of working in cahoots with a certain species. I don't know firsthand, but I believe that there's something to it. And I think that, we're being set up for a false flag. And I have a quote from a lady named Carol Rosen. She was interviewed by Stephen Greer, and Carol Rosen, she supposedly worked with what was his name? Werner von Braun, the guy who developed the V2 rocket. And what she said, and this is her quote in relation to conversations she had with Werner von Braun, was, "What was most interesting to me was a repetitive sentence that he said to me over and over again. And that was the strategy that was being used to educate the public and decision makers, and scare tactics, the spin that was being put on the weapon system, and that was how we identify an enemy." And she said, the enemy at first, he said, the enemy against whom we're going to build a space-based weapon system, let's go back to Star Wars with Reagan, for Pete's sakes. It says, first the Russians are going to be considered the enemy. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. and then we were going to identify third world crazies. We now call them nations of concern. The next enemy was asteroids, and against asteroids, we're going to build space-based weapons. She says, and the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over during the 4 years that I knew him, and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens, and all of it, he said, is a lie. And that's kind of what I'm going to leave that question with. Sorry if it was long-winded.
No, I liked it. Von Braun, what some of the folks out there listening might not understand is he actually worked with the fascist Nazis first, and he would come to the United States and help us develop our rocket program after fascism died, in the 1940s. So I think it's important for everyone to understand that. And we go back to Europe in modern day, Andy, and we see, you talk about opening portals. You have that Hadrian Collider that's smashing. And then, right next to there, we look at this Luciferian agenda or this rise of worshiping Baal and whatnot. That's something that is very alarming as well, especially when you see a lot of people think that the Illuminati is rubbish, that the plutocracy, whatever, these elitists are rubbish. But in reality, there's some common sense there.
Well, let's look at the 2016 election and the leak of the Podesta emails. I think that there was a lot of things that came out to light there that really led us down the rabbit hole. It showed us that the elites, they really are worshiping Baal. Podesta at one point says, hey, I'm going to go sacrifice a chicken to Baal. And that's when the spirit cooking came out. And then, Hillary publishes her book where she openly says, yeah, I tried to put hexes and curses on people. I do black magic, and I'm into voodoo. She says it in her book. And, what's funny is that if you were to say this, if anyone was to hear our interview here and not follow up on the resources that we're giving them the clues to, they would say, you guys are nuts. But we're not nuts. And it's really starting to come out into light. If you look at the first thing that happened in January of 2017, January last year, Trump assumes office, and we have this outbreak of Satanists all over the U.S., and they're talking about how they're going to put curses on Trump and his supporters. And where does this come from? Now they're just like crawling out of the woodwork like cockroaches. So I think that there's definitely more to it. I think that's your extraterrestrial false flag. I think Luciferianism. I think the Illuminati. I think that they're all interlocked like this. And I think that when you start looking into one, it's going to lead you into the other facets of that.
For sure. Now, I can see it on Benji's face. Benji, do you have a question?
I have a question that's been waiting for a while, but I just was waiting for the right time to bring it up. It's a little bit off topic, but it's not, in all honesty. A while back ago, JoJo asked what inspired you two to write books. So, with that, let's start with Andy.
Oh, geez. Well, I never wanted to write books. My first book was a knife and hand-to-hand combat manual that was basically spurred by a conversation between myself and a guy who's a mixed martial arts legend. A longtime friend of mine. His name is Dan Severin. They used to call him the Beast. He's a UFC Hall of Famer, just all-around great guy and a mentor to me. And we were in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I brought him out to train some various different groups of people and some special operations individuals as well. And during one of our breaks, we went to a Barnes & Noble bookstore. And the Army was going through this massive craze. They were switching from the old Taekwondo-style combatives or unarmed fighting techniques that they used to teach to all the soldiers to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu / mixed martial arts style of fighting. And I thought it was garbage. Even though I'm a professional mixed martial artist, I just thought it was garbage for what you do in the gutter or in the street or in room-to-room fighting. And Dan finds this book that was written by this guy, and I'm not going to say his name out here because I don't want to trash anyone's name. And it was on the Modern Army Combatives program. And he's like, starts going through it, and he says, this is utter crap. He goes, I can't believe this is what the Army's gone to, training our boys and girls that are going into harm's way. And he says, you ought to write a book. He says, because the program that you developed for your guys is much more reality-based, and it's just more down to earth. And I just looked at him. I said, Dan, I could never write a book. And let me tell you something. He kept pushing, and he kept pushing. And so I just sat down one day, and I just started just writing. And then that led me to other stuff. So that's it.
And there is a story behind the 1984 redo, but maybe we'll visit that in hour number 2.
Yeah.
That I think is truly amazing. And Benji hasn't heard the story, and I know a lot of our listeners haven't either. That's very discerning, in many ways. But to answer the question, I really had no inclination to write a book either. I went through some stuff, and after my dad died, my dad always wanted to write a book and never had the chance in his life. So I broke down. I wrote a book on death and grieving, and I was writing about paranormal experiences as well. And I put those books together, and I slapped out my very first book, Paranormal Experiences, Death, The Final Frontier, which right now I do have a revamped set called Death, the Saga. It's got all 3 of my original books in there, edited, of course, along with 5 new chapters. So you get a chance, check that out. It is out currently. But that's I started writing, and I really never stopped, is to kind of answer that question.
That's all I ask. I'm just intrigued. I'm just listening.
Well, you know what? Let's talk about these global elites. You look the Rothschilds. Basically all the families that represent basically the world power and whatnot, Andy. And do you think it's set on 5 or 6 families, or do you think that there's more involved than that?
I think that those are the ones that we see. I think that, and again, this is my theory. I have a theory, and I have a lot of facts that I put out there in my books and my posts and the things that you're putting out there every day. I think that support my theory. But for my theory to really exist, there's got to be more than just 5 families. And I think there are, and I think that there's a lot of people that we're not seeing behind the curtains. I'm always one of those people that kind of takes that old detective adage, follow the money. And I think that if we start following the money, that's who we're going to find is pulling the strings here. So here's one for you. Look at what's been going on with the Dow lately. It's been absolutely crazy. I personally think that somebody's playing economic terrorism. That's what I think. There's just too many. But the thing is, well, how's it going on? Well, I don't have access to be able to follow financial records to see who's pulling out of what, when, and who's transferring money where. But I think that's going on behind the scenes. And I think that the people that are running that are some very powerful, very rich people. But who are they? I don't know specifically.
That kind of leads me into this first probably real butthurt, question, statement, whatever. I personally feel that Trump, he's been elected, and people can't get over it. But I don't know. In my heart, Andy, it tells me that Trump isn't a part of this global establishment, even though he's a billionaire. I mean, what do you think? Do you think he's an outsider looking in, or do you think there's a real possibility that, he won and he could be a part of it?
I think that he's someone who had a lot of access to the inside at one point, and I think that he legitimately cares about his country. I think that he understands some of the things that helped make him a successful billionaire. I mean, let's face it. I don't care what anyone says. They always say, well, he came from a rich family. His dad gave him $1 million. Yeah, you're right. And he turned $1 million into what? $3 billion. So that's an amazing thing to do. And that's something that someone who understands what capitalism can do and the free market. And I think that when the insiders where he's at, these global elite that he's no doubt he's hobnobbed with, he's probably threw back some champagne with him at some point on some occasion. Well, he says he doesn't drink, so I don't know. He's probably hobnobbed with these people. And I think that they know who he is. And I think that they understand that he has an appreciation for the free market And I think that they realize real quick, if this guy is in a position of the United States president, he's going to be a problem to them. I'm surprised, and I hope it doesn't happen. I'm surprised they haven't killed him yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those things. You look at the last two presidents, and I mean, George W. Bush, no one was going to kill him. I felt that. But you look at the last two presidents, and you look back in history, and I would say getting unscathed is pretty remarkable in many cases. But and when you said that, I lost all train of thought. All I could think of was he probably ate Kentucky Fried Chicken, either a McChicken from McDonald's and a Diet Coke's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I don't know. I can tell you, I like what the president's doing. I honestly believe that when he says something about the things that he says, how he feels towards America, I believe him. And that's one of the reasons I voted for him. I don't agree with everything that he says or does. I'm not a big fan of this parade that he wants to have. I think that there's a lot of ways that we can save, I honestly think, billions of dollars by reappropriating our U.S. military assets and pulling them out of places that are abroad and putting them on our borders and using them to protect the nation's borders, which is what they were intended for as a standing army. So I don't agree with everything that he says or does, but I think he's probably a good man. I think that he's had access to the inside. I don't believe that he buys into it all. And I think that there's probably some things that we talk about that he probably just doesn't even want to come to admit himself. That's what I think.
Now, let's throw this in there. Is it going to be possible for the Democrats and the Republicans to come together, and fix this funding issue? You talk about glass ceiling, whatever. And Rand Paul does have a lot of great points, but he's also a little kooky in certain areas. But do you think that we're ever going to be able to come together as Americans again and stop being butthurt all the time?
Okay, I think you hit the right phrase there. Are we going to be able to come together as Americans? Because if you ask me whether or not the Republican Party and the Democrat Party have come together, I would say that the answer is absolutely they have. I think that everything that we're experiencing is political theater. Or as one of my friends, I got a friend who's on Facebook, and I love some of his stuff because he'll put phrases out there that it just paraphrases everything perfectly. He calls it political kabuki theater. And that's what we're experiencing right now. If you think that the Republicans and the Democrats don't talk behind closed doors, that they're not going to, sip champagne together after work, you're crazy. They're playing us. I honestly think that they're taking us for a ride, and they're manipulating us because they have to have this conflict going in America to create the illusion that there's really a difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. That's what I think, and again, take my opinion for what it is, but I think we're being played.
And I have to agree with you, and I say this a lot in the classroom. I said, whether or not you're a Democrat or Republican makes no difference. Yep. It's whether or not you can come together and be able to talk in a rational, educated manner, which the damn news, man. I mean, I personally like these kind of, news related type of shows versus even watching the network. Because you can obviously see that Fox News is tainted to the right, MSNBC is tainted to the left, and CNN, who the hell knows what Clinton News Network's doing?
They just make things up at random. I mean, but no, I mean the reality is, I honestly, like I said, I think that we're all being played and we're being pitted against each other. That the media, as we know it, and I say the media, and I'm going to group them all together, and I'm going to call them the Ministry of Truth. Because that's just like what Orwell had going on in 1984. They're the Ministry of Truth, and it's the truth that they want you to believe. It's not necessarily the truth that actually exists. Perception is reality. So, if you go and you talk to the average viewer of MSNBC, there's no doubt in their mind that Trump was colluding with Russia. He's out to bring America down. He hates everyone who's not white. He goes to bed like this every night and then falls asleep. I mean, that's what's going on with the MSNBC crowd. If you follow the Fox News crowd, well, the Republican Party is going to save the planet. And unfortunately, we got this guy, Donald Trump, who we're trying to warm up to. If you follow CNN, the Clintons are the greatest thing ever. And, they're just going to make up a random story and you're going to believe it. And that's, tomorrow's news is going to be whatever they can pull out of their ass the night before. Perception is reality. And you got a small group of people in America that say, hey man, I'm really not buying this from Fox. There's maybe something to it, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem right. So let me flip over here. CNN, man, that's completely out of this world. That doesn't make any sense. And where the hell are these people in MSNBC getting these ideas from? So then they'll go to alternative news sources, places like Breitbart or places like InfoWars, or they might follow some of the stuff that you're putting out there on your Facebook page. And that's how they're starting to put their ideas together. So I think that the social media thing, that's probably one of our biggest assets and our weapons, and it's also one of the biggest things that the powers who be, they're trying to control right now. There's a lot of censorship going on because they don't want the truth out there. They've got their version of the truth that they're trying to get us all to swallow and to fight about.
What's sad is that these great folks that have been blocked or banned, from Twitter or from Facebook or whatever, they're not saying anything that's not in the mind of 99.9% of Americans or people worldwide. You know what I'm saying? I mean, for crying out loud, this past election, it wouldn't have made any difference if I had a Clinton or a Trump sign in my yard. People would have gotten pissed about it. You know what really ticks me off is this past year. I'm not a Bernie Sanders fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I had a student that basically was inspired by basically going out and finding a candidate that they really was wanting to push. And I had a signed Bernie Sanders sign, and I had it hanging up in my room, and people thought that I was a Bernie guy. I wasn't a Bernie guy. I just had a history.
Yeah, they don't know you then. If they believe that, they don't know you, Chuck.
And with that, we've just been kicked off the air. No, I'm kidding.
Zuckerberg, come on. Now, Twitter. I got to go back here, Andy. I got to talk to you about Twitter. How on earth do you get banned from Twitter?
How the hell do you get banned from Facebook permanently? But somehow I ended up back on, which I'm not going to talk about how I did that. So, hey, look, here's the thing, man. Yeah, we're talking about that. I'm going to tell you, this is just my take on the world. I say some very inflammatory things, and I know you know that I do. And anyone who knows me knows that I'll put some very inflammatory things out there, and I push my limits every single day, and I do it for a number of reasons. Number one, because I kind of feel like most of America has been zombified. They have been so freaking just paralyzed by this overload of crap that's coming into their brain that they're numb to everything. So my thing is like, hey, I understand shock therapy, So I'm going to say things that you may not like it, you may disagree with me, but I'm trying to get a response out of you. I want you to respond to me. I want you to come back. I want you to say something. I want to hear something intelligent come out of your mouth. And then the other reason that I say some of the things that I say and do some of the things that I do is because I can. Until they tell me I'm banned permanently again. So
you want intelligent responses from us, but we are the sheeple. We cannot think individually.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to kind of like slap that out of people. Like, hey, have I pissed you off? Are you angry yet? Let me hear it.
Absolutely.
And I think it's extremely important to make it abundantly clear that some of the stuff that we post is to basically get people to go out and have a rational, intelligent conversation.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't care if you believe in certain aspects or whatever, as long as you can talk rationally. But 9 times out of 10, man, you make a comment, or I make a comment on a particular subject, and like
you are wrong. You are absolutely wrong. I have absolutely no proof whatsoever to back up the fact that you are wrong and that I am right, but you are wrong.
Tell me why. Why am I wrong? Please.
That's where rational and intelligent conversation, please, people.
And to be perfectly honest, I mean, all three of us are going to have varying ideas or beliefs on every topic, but at the end of the day, we can sit together and have an intelligent conversation over it. And I think that's important.
Chuck, it's funny that you say that. I talk a lot about, you ask me a question, I say, well, I don't have inside sources and I don't have definitive proof on a lot of things, just what I read or whatever. But a lot of what my theory is on a lot of things, it's a developing thing, I might see something that you put out there, I'm like, holy cow, I never saw this before. And where did you get that from? And, tell me more about it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, that makes this make a whole lot more sense now. And if we're not doing that with each other, I think that we're all going to be blind.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what the elitists, this Illuminati agenda, this plutocratic government that we have want us to do.
Sure. They want us to be completely blind to everything that's going on.
Yep.
Because a divided America is a conquered America. And as Einstein said, once we put our heads into technology, the dumbing down of the world has commenced.
I would, I think you may have seen some of my posts. I put some posts out there that were kind of, some people were like, what the hell did you put that out there for? Something like, yeah, I'm a member of your community. I know where you live. I know where your kids go to school, whatever. Just be careful what you do. You mess with my job, you mess with my home, I'm coming after you type thing. Mm-hmm. And where that stemmed from was I got a friend of mine. His name's Bob Duros. And I become a friend with this guy. He's more of an associate. I become friends with this guy because of his ideas. He's running for sheriff in the small county of Currituck in North Carolina. And I don't say I throw back beers with this guy by any means, but I have interaction with him online, and I like a lot of his ideas. And he's completely anti-corruption, and he's open all about transparency in the law enforcement and doing what's right for the law enforcement officers while taking care of the community. And he does a lot of great things in the local area of Currituck. Well, his opposition, there's a little bit behind us. His opposition is kind of the right-hand man of the current sheriff. She's the sitting sheriff of Currituck. And there's a lot of kind of corrupt things going on. You got sheriffs that are going down to Nag's Head, getting, basically they're breaking and entering. And they're getting away with it because the judges are looking the other way because the sheriff is like, hey, can you let it go? These are my guys type thing. And there's a lot of people who are in this small town who are like, well, if we get a new guy who comes in here, he's going to kind of see the dirt that we got going. So the guy who's running against him, he goes out and he does his campaigning while in uniform, which is completely unethical. So my thing is, yeah, great. You can perform duties as a sheriff's deputy, but when it comes to your campaigning, please leave the uniform at home and let this be a fair game. Let's not campaign in uniform and make it seem like, you have the support of the state per se. So I brought this up in a forum that was on Facebook. And when I did, man, the opposition, there was no intelligent response coming from anyone. My thing was, hey, does anyone else find it unethical that the opposition to this guy, and I'm not going to say his name, but if you look up Bob Duros, you'll know who's running against him. And I said, is there anyone who thinks that this is unethical? This guy's out there campaigning in his uniform, with the support of the sheriff's department behind him. And, of course, when I did this, man, it was like, you're a communist and blah, blah. And I start getting all these accusations, people who don't even know me. And, of course, they know my pseudonym. And Chuck knows what my pseudonym is on Facebook. Well, next thing you know, I'm completely getting blind. And I'm going toe-to-toe with these guys because I know where I'm coming from on this. And I can back anything up. So finally I get blocked and I'm off. Well, next thing you know, I'm getting people reaching out to me on Facebook saying, man, that was awesome. You finally went after the opposition. The opposition here who's just the sitting, they're the swamp per se, and nobody ever puts them in their place. And next thing you know, I'm also getting messages on Facebook saying, hey, man, they found out who you are. And now they've got an open call to find out where you live, where you work. They want to put you away and this and that. And so that was kind of why I put this response out. But when you talk about not being able to come up with an intelligent response, it was just, you're wrong, I hate you. Why? Because I have a difference in view. And that's the answer to it.
Yep, your view did not agree with their view, and
yeah,
damn it, you were wrong. Because
wrong.
They didn't agree with you. You were wrong.
I'm so wrong.
All the time.
And I'm sorry, if you've ever read an Andy Curtis post, he's totally anti-communist.
I hate communism. Yeah, I've been accused of being a communist, so hey. I've been accused of being anti-American.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm speechless, man.
But
You know what?
That's the sheeple, you know. It's they're programmed and they're numb and they're happy being numb. They're doped up on whatever kind of dope that they're putting out there.
Candy makes a great statement in the chat. They feed the confusion, keeping the masses totally off balance.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, we've went through an hour and 4 minutes. This has been the fastest hour and 4 minutes I think that we've ever had. But I definitely want you to share that story about finding out that even a decorated soldier could be put on a list.
Yeah, so in 2009, I'm getting ready to go do one of the jobs for my day job. And I'm a consultant for various entities within the United States government and also private security companies and so on and so forth. So I'm getting ready to travel abroad, and I get this email, and it's one of those chain emails that people like to send out, and they don't really verify information on. And it was like, congratulations, you just made the terrorist watch list. Well, number one, that kind of hit me kind of hard because I actually was arrested under the Patriot Act once. So I'm like, okay, well, let me hear more about this. And so I started reading it. It's about this report on right-wing extremism that was put out by the Department of Homeland Security. This is back when Janet Napolitano was the head of Department of Homeland Security. And basically it's a report that basically alienates like a majority of America. And it criminalizes a majority of Americans, particularly right-wing and conservative view folks. And what it does, the report puts most center-thinking Americans, right-wing Americans, and conservative Americans in the same boat as some of your right-wing extremist groups like the KKK, the neo-Nazis, so on and so forth. But what was interesting was that out of all the fiction that was in this email, the one thing I could verify is that there was a movement to create these detention centers or basically what's known as FEMA camps, and that there was this report on right-wing extremism. And it was April 7th, 2009 report on right-wing extremism published by the Department of Homeland Security. And it said specifically anyone who was a returning combat veteran, if anyone who was a Christian who believed in end-time prophecies, and they referenced the book of Revelation, anyone who feared that it was possible for the U.S. economy to collapse and were supporters of Ron Paul, who at that time was a no-kidding, legit, viable presidential candidate. And it just goes on and on and on about all these conservative-thinking people, to include anyone who was anti-Barack Obama. And it said, if you're one of these people, then you need to be watched. The Department of Homeland Security is going to be watching you. So that kind of infuriated me quite a bit. And I started researching more and more about it, going down the rabbit hole, learning about the relocation and indoctrination camps or re-education camps. And I got so upset about things that I called a guy who was a Vietnam veteran and a congressman named Leo Berman. He was out of the 6th District of Tyler, Texas. And I emailed him the night before I'm getting ready to go to an African country. And I just told him my concerns. And I broke it down in bullet points, why I was so concerned. And immediately I got a response. First, it was the automated response that almost any politician's office will send you. And then moments later, I got another response, and it was from Leo Berman himself. And he was like, hey, let's talk about this tomorrow. Call me. Just tell my assistant who you are. We'll talk. I want to talk to you about this. And I sent an email back saying, hey, I'm not able to do so because I'm going to be out of the country for several months, but this is something, I'm really concerned about and would like some advice on which direction you could point me and how I can help America. Well, months went by, and I, of course, was still thinking about this stuff, and it put me on the trail to learning more and more about it, but I kind of forgot about the email with Mr. Berman. And I'm mowing my lawn. Again, this is when I was living in Fayetteville, North Carolina, just outside of Fort Bragg, and I get a phone call. The old flip phone was ringing in my butt. So I pulled it out and I answered the phone, and he says, "Hey, this is Leo Berman out of the 6th District of Tyler, Texas." And I'm like, "Holy cow, I know exactly who you are." He's like, "Do you have some time to talk?" And we spoke for about 3 hours, nonstop, about several issues. Everything that ranged from FEMA camps to the right-wing report on extremism to Obamacare to cap and trade to a movement to register our firearms, which at that time was H.R. 45, a whole number of things. And, man, I was just so disturbed. And I said, "Well, what can I do?" I said, "Hey, sir, I'm a former special forces guy. I know how to overthrow countries. What do you need me to do?" Because I'm dead serious. This is a threat to us all, and this is what I call, treason. And he says, "No, none of that." He says, "You can spread the word." And he said, "I'm going to put you in touch with this other senator who I'm not going to name, who is absolutely useless." And he says, basically put the word out. So I just started researching, and my ex-wife at that time, she's like, "You should write another book. Write another book and just let people know." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? If I put this out there, I'm going to get more hate mail, and people are going to want to string me up." I was like, "There's no way I'm going to be called a kook. I'm afraid I'll lose my security clearance if I put this out there." And I just, basically tucked my chin in, and I went and I wrote the book. It took me about a year, and then I published it. And so it's just, it's been a ride.
And, it's crazy, this whole concept that you would put somebody who's put themselves out there to protect and basically, keep America the way it is today. And there's the flag, folks. You want to see it, and to put them into that type of situation. I just think it's crazy and it's insane. Now, as far as the FEMA camps, these things are very real, and there's a lot of people that don't think that they're real. What do you tell those people, or the people that think, "Oh man, this is all kooky nonsense"?
Well, I would tell you that Leo Berman himself told me that they're very real, that it is a threat to America. I can tell you that in 2009, the U.S. Army started recruiting internment relocation camp specialists on the Army Times, on monsterjobs.com. They were boning up this position, this military occupational specialty within the military. The problem was at that time we were basically ramping down Guantanamo Bay, which for all intents and purposes, the most famous internment relocation camp that we know of. And there's a couple other ones that are smaller, but nothing that would require the numbers that the military was recruiting at that time. What was also going on at that time, they were pushing a bill. It was called H.R. 645. And it would have been, if it passed, a carte blanche for the federal government and FEMA to continue the development of these camps, which were actually started under the Bush administration in 2003 using KBR and Dick Cheney's company, Halliburton. Unfortunately, and this is the thing, at the time that I published my book, 1984 Redo, this bill was still going through. And, of course, I wanted to get this book out there quick and scream to the high heavens all this stuff was going on. That bill was canned. It was canned in the Senate. It never made it. But there's a movement out there. There's people within inside the government that want to accomplish this. And I think this is very dangerous to all of us, and I think that we need to stay vigilant as citizens.
Now, do you feel that the same entity has something to do with the chemtrails? I mean, that's something that I haven't brought up on a lot of my shows, but you have chemtrails. You have these, the idea of cancer, the idea that we have a cure for this terrible disease that impacts all of us. Yet the government, it just rolls its eyes.
Well, I would say follow the money. When we look at big pharma, how much money is being made off cancer? How many kickbacks are going to politicians? There's no reason you should be a politician in the United States and then walk out a multimillionaire. You go in just like you and me, and then you walk out and you're loaded with bucks. It just doesn't happen. That's a public servant position. How are you becoming rich? And I think the answer is when we look at, like I said, groups that support big pharma. When we start to look at chemtrails, hey, is that really a surprise? Let's look at National Security Memo 200, came out back in the 70s. They're talking about population reduction. I don't know. Maybe they're freaking bioengineering atmosphere for us, something that's going to make people sick, something that's going to lighten up the population. Let's look at Bill Gates. Let's look at Melinda Gates. They have a foundation. Their thing is Bill Gates says he's got this number, and it's got to basically be reduced from 7 billion down to around 1 million. How are you going to do that? Well, 7 billion being the population, 1 million being the ideal number of top-tier people in the world that he thinks should be alive. And their answer to that is through vaccines. Whoa, wait a minute. That blew me out of the water. It was a TED Talk, and it's on video, and you can find it on YouTube. So his plan to lower the world's population is through implementing vaccines, and let's get that number down to around 1 million. Think about this. We've got close to 8 billion people in the world right now. You want to get it down to 1 million? That's insane. And you're going to do this through vaccines? By the way, look how much government funding he has. So when we start to look at chemtrails, we know we don't necessarily know what they're spraying out there, but we know that they've done studies where there's a lot of heavy concentrations of witness chemtrails. And then they start taking soil samples in these areas, and they find heavy traces of metals in these areas. Mercury, beryllium, barium, aluminum. These are all things that kill people. And then you start to look at things like Morgellons disease. Do I know what chemtrails are meant for? I don't know if they're terraforming. I don't know if they're trying to reflect the Earth's sun to prevent global warming, which we all know is a big hoax. Or I don't know what. Maybe they're trying to put more metals in the air so that they can use ELF, extremely low frequency waves, to try to control our minds or to sabotage our phone networks. I don't know. I don't know what this is for, but there's something to chemtrails.
And we've just touched touched at the tip of the iceberg right now. You look at this flu that's taken out 66 young children in the past 2 months. I mean, it's 2018, for crying out loud. How come we can't even save people from the flu?
Chuck, here's what I know. When I was in the Army, they used to force us every year to go get your vaccines. I've been out of the Army since 2008. 2007. I've been out of the Army since 2007. I've never taken a flu shot since. I won't take a vaccine for any reason because I don't trust them. I've had so much crap stuck in me. I don't know what it is. And I can tell you I've been perfectly fine. When I get sick, I recover naturally. I try to eat a balanced diet. I try to exercise properly. I try to take proper vitamins and minerals. I drink plenty of water, and I just try to stay a low stress life to keep my immune system up. I don't need vaccines. I've done this well, going on over 10 years, facing the flu every year, going to countries where people are sick all the time. My immune system's in tip-top shape, folks. So, but that's the choice I make.
I have to dig in here because my family did not get the flu vaccine, and we haven't for about 5 years. Guess what? My family, none of us have gotten anything remotely close to any influenza or any sickness like that. And I will tell you that there were a lot of people that got these shots within our school district, and they all have influenza. So, I'm beginning to think that, well, we all know Big Pharma. They want to make money off of us, like with my blood pressure pill or whatever. They want me to take as many friggin' pills as possible, and basically just to Band-Aid me to move on. Now, I've cut myself out totally from the doctors. I'm down to one blood pressure pill, and my fat ass is doing just fine. So,
Chuck, I work one of my day jobs, I'll say. I do a lot of stuff in the music industry. I'm not going to say for who or for what or whatever, but I'll work pretty big events. And I see a lot of today's youth coming in. And, I'm seeing some of the pills and stuff that they're on or they're trying to sneak in. All these kids are hooked on Adderall. They all got ADHD. They all got some sort of psych problem. And they're perfectly fine. These kids are perfectly fine. They're kids that would probably be just completely healthy and happy if they weren't on the dope and somebody wasn't telling them there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. We got to get you doped up. We got to get you on pills. There's a lot of money to be made off it, man. And these are kids who I think in most cases would probably be normal in any other sense. But now there's something wrong with them because they think that there's something wrong with them. So they're going to take a pill, which is going to make something wrong with them. And it's just a vicious cycle, and it keeps repeating itself. And I see it a lot, man.
It's absolutely insane. I mean, I say Tide Pods. That's kind of evolution.
Let them do it.
That's Darwinism at its finest, right
Yeah.
there.
Go ahead. Test your luck, kids.
Hey,
But
you know what? If you can chew on this freaking rock, you go right ahead.
Someone somewhere put that idea in somebody's head. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that it was the government or anybody trying to depopulate the world, but at that point, when they're going to go that far to eat a Tide Pod, I'm sorry. When it's a little kid, it looks like a piece of candy. Okay, I can understand that. When it's a little kid, it looks like a piece of candy. That's one thing. But when grown-ass people are doing this, when teenagers are doing this, people who are supposed to have half a brain in them, I say just let them do it.
Did you see that thing that was going around on the internet probably about 3 months ago? There's a game they're playing in Russia. And I don't know. Listen, maybe I'm an old guy, I guess, and I keep getting told I am anyhow. But they've got this thing going around on the internet in Russia. It's like an online challenge thing, and they have these forums and these social media platforms that they'll use, and it's like these 3 challenges that you have to do, and the challenges change, but it ultimately ends up with you killing yourself. You have to kill somebody innocent, and then you have to kill yourself. And I think the article that I seen was some Russian kid went out there and he completed these 3 challenges, and one of them was to kill an innocent person, which was his teacher, his school teacher. And he basically comes online. He's like, yeah, this is a great guy. He's fantastic. Everyone loves him, man. I really like this guy, so I'm going to kill him. And then he kills the guy with like a chainsaw and then like hacks himself in the neck with it. And he does this all on film for like 15 minutes of fame for a damn internet challenge.
Oh, that sounds a little bit like the whole blue whale challenge that's out there that I keep hearing about or whatever. That's one where it's supposed to be one of these secret challenges, but it's ultimately it ends in them killing themselves. But they sign up for this challenge at some website somewhere, and I'm probably going to get shot someday for saying something about it. But ultimately, at the end of the whole process, they keep being fed things that you have to do this. Your new challenge is this, and I can't remember how many there are. That's way more than 3. There's like 20-something different things you have to do. And one of them, I mean, a lot of it has to do with self-mutilation.
Jeez.
But it's all about having the people that are giving the orders. For them, it's all about having the power over somebody. And then for the people that are doing it, most of them should be on a suicide watch list or something anyway. But I mean, it's everything has to be filmed. They have to send proof that they have actually done it. Whatever the challenge is.
Whatever happened to Truth or Dare? Hey, go ask that girl out, or go call that girl old broad, or something like that. I mean, Jesus.
I got a challenge for you. This is the Andy Curtis challenge. Why don't you go out there, you live life pretty good, you keep to yourself, you treat other people good, you eat your vitamins, you exercise right, and say your prayers. Amen. Done.
I'm going to take that challenge on. No.
I don't know. We challenge each other every day in the teaching profession. Don't be an asshole. I don't know. Oh my goodness. Where has this show gone? We promised to talk about aliens and crap, and we're talking about Tide Pods and self-mutilation and
Well, it's tied together, Chuck. You can't, like I said earlier, you can't start to go down one road without it branching off into the other one. If you're talking about a false flag attack, well, where's the false flag attack coming from? It's the powers that be. Well, how do the powers that be exercise their authority? They do it through government. Okay, let's talk about government. What kind of things are going on right now? Well, let's take a look at the 1969 documentation by the Weather Underground. You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. That's what it was titled. And they talk about taking the youth and basically getting the youth to kind of disown the parents and basically submit to the state, which would be their teachers, their professors, so on and so forth. And then the state, in turn, would be basically underneath the government, which their end state was to instill a communist government, what they call a classless society. And what's funny is that no matter how you think about it, whenever you look at communism, its very roots, whether you want to go back to look at Karl Marx. Look at some of his writings. Look how dark it was. Look how much it references Lucifer and Satan and the demonic. And then you start to go back even further to the Illuminati. And let's face it, there's a lot of things out there that show that the original Illuminists, they were basically early communists. So, okay, let's go way back. Let's go all the way back to the Council of Nicaea. Okay, let's talk about religion. When we start to talk about religion, what is religion? It's basically a way to control the masses. You know, I haven't been to church a whole lot, but hell, I've gone to a couple churches to see what's going on. I see the amount of control that churches can have over people. And I don't think for one second that there aren't some churches that are abusing that power. Let's look, and again, you know, if you're Catholic, I don't want to offend you, but this is the Butthurt Show. You know, let's look at the Catholic Church. Let's look at it. Let's see how corrupt it is. Let's look at all the abuses that are going on over at the Vatican. Hell, let's look at their telescope. What's it called? Lucifer. That's what they call their telescope.
Man.
Okay. Sorry.
What?
Is it okay if I want to play a 3-minute, 16-second clip, and this is from 1964, okay? I want to play it for our listeners.
If I were the devil, if I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree, thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old, I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
And that was from Paul Harvey, 1964.
I was just about to say, that sounds like Paul Harvey.
Yeah.
Jeez.
You know,
So much of that from back then is still true or has become true now. Isn't that crazy?
It's almost hard to even go on with the show here the last half hour, you know, after something like that.
I keep telling people you can't make it up. You just can't make all this up. And if you're paying attention to anything in history, just if you paid attention to one bit of how we've gotten here, you'd come to the realization that you cannot make this up.
There's too many details involved to be able to make this fantastic thing up.
You can't. I'm just. That's why I said, it's like I talk to my girlfriend a lot. One of the things that I find we kind of talk off subject kind of about it a little bit here and there. We've hit it on it. Paul Harvey hit on it. Talking about basically destroying the sanctity of basically the man-woman relationship, right? And then we see all this stuff that's coming out with AI and the big push. I think the Church of Satan recently put out an article that they're all about these the sex dolls, and they believe the sex doll industry is going to save mankind. It's going to protect us from diseases. It's going to help the population, and the whole nine yard. And so I'm watching this Netflix TV show with my girlfriend, and one of the episodes, basically, there's a sex doll that was in there. I was like, wow, that's one of them high-quality sex dolls there. It's not the old blow-up doll, right? And she's like, that's a terrible sex doll. You should see some of the stuff that they've got out there now. And I'm like, well, really? I guess that, and what it looked to me, it was like just a mannequin, which looked better than the blow-up doll, blow-up Nancy that they got out there, right? So I'm like, well, they've got better than that? So she Googles sex dolls, and it takes us to this website, and the sex dolls that they got out there, man, they're better looking than half the real women that are out there. And I remember telling her, man, I was joking around. I said, boy, you're lucky I met you when I did. I said, or else I'd be spending all my money on one of them, And but it's a joke. But the reality is, the big push, and this is my theory, I think the big push by the powers that be is to destroy that sanctity between a man and a woman. And again, I'm the kind of guy that if you want to be a trans whatever, go ahead. If you identify with being an elephant, by all means, go ahead and do so. I don't care. I'm never going to stop you. That's your right. But when I start to look at the push that's going to push these people into man and man, woman and woman relationships, man and horse, man and robot, man and whatever. Wait a minute. This is just unnatural now. So how is it going to help the world? Well, the Church of Satan hit it best. Well, it's going to stop disease. It's going to stop, childbirths and overpopulation, and it's going to stop drug mothers out there, crack mothers that they got these kids that they're throwing out in the streets. It's going to save us from all that. It's also going to stop us from having normal relationships the way things were naturally meant to be. So I don't know. There's a lot of dangers to it.
All right, we're 29 minutes away, Benji. I want to make sure that everyone's answer, or if they've asked a question, we're going to answer.
Ooh, you just started echoing there. I don't know what's going on that end, but Sonia did ask a question a little while ago. Not really necessarily a question, more of a statement, but she would like to hear, and I know some of that's been thrown out already, but she would like to hear some of the conspiracy theories Andy has.
Ooh.
There's so many.
Pick the best ones. No.
I don't know. I think probably the one that people think is the craziest is the conspiracy theory that there's going to be a false flag alien invasion. I think that that's something that's viable, and I think that's something that they're very much likely to try on the American people. I think that there's the conspiracy that there's a population agenda to depopulize the world. I think that they would want that because you've got your elites who are at the very top, and they want manageable numbers. Numbers that they can control much easier, numbers that are a whole lot easier to feed and to clothe and to give orders to. So I think those are probably two of the big ones.
So didn't we already technically have, at one point in time, a false flag alien invasion, completely unintentionally on a radio show, War of the Worlds or something like that, years and years and years ago?
Yeah, and I think that War of the Worlds is probably one of the big things out there that probably, let's face it, at that time it would have been like the predecessor to the OSS, if not the early OSS, and they would have been sitting there saying, "Wow, this is fantastic, this is crazy. How can we manipulate the masses?" So, yeah, I think that was one of the things that led them to believe that, hey, if we threw this out there, how quickly we'd get people, as they say, both Kissinger and Ronald Reagan, how quickly people would set their differences aside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that one, it was a radio show, I believe, because it wasn't on TV.
Orson Welles.
That it just put a bunch of people just tuning in. If they weren't there from the very beginning, if they joined in later and they were just tuning in, it created mass hysteria because they thought that they were seriously under attack.
Orson Welles. And this is, again, some of the reasons why I believe it's completely viable. Hell, there's technology out there now. If you look into like Project Bluebeam, you can see there's some companies in Japan. They can create holographic images that look so real. You got like dragons and dinosaurs coming out of the water. They look like they're going to eat this kid up. And it's just a holographic image. We can generate this in the sky. What could you do to a third world country when you generate this image of their savior coming from the sky? Holy cow,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's just there's a ton involved in that, and you know what, there are a lot of people out there, Andy, that think that either we're going to have an alien invasion, the Yellowstone's going to erupt, or we're going to have some type of nuclear disaster, or something that will wipe out our grid from North Korea.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. My business, whether it's consulting for the government or whether I do it for private entities, corporations, music industry, whatever, I deal with emergency preparedness. That's what I do. And what I tell people is if you prepare for a natural disaster, whether it's a hurricane, a tornado, or an earthquake, whatever, you're going to be ready for just about anything, whether it's aliens coming from outer space or the Russians jumping out of airplanes. You're going to be ready for it. So my thing is, have a good plan in the event of anything that's well-rounded, that you can take care of yourself and your family.
And you have a book about that. You want to share?
Yeah, it's basically, you can find it on Amazon. It's a digital book. It's under Kindle. It's Economic Collapse, and it's like 42 things that you should buy before it's too late, how to develop a survival plan. It's just a real basic general thing. It does talk about economic collapse. I give historical examples going all the way back to like the earliest economic collapse and to the latest ones in the 20th century, and then basically how I would prepare for it using some very basic principles and some very simple things that you can buy readily accessible right now in any store.
Now, what do you think about all this this idea behind Russian collusion? This Clinton aspect that could come to attrition. And somebody, they've been saying for weeks that this is going to be bigger than Watergate. And I say, come out with that shit already. I want to hear it.
Yeah, I think that if the Democrats got something that needs to be said out there, by all means, let them be heard. The Republicans were heard. Let's put an IG out there. Let's come up with a real nonpartisan investigator, not the Mueller thing. That's a witch hunt. We all know it. I think that the Russian collusion, Zbigniew Brzezinski, he's been involved with politics for a long time, going all the way back to like Nixon or Carter. I'm sorry, Carter. Zbigniew Brzezinski's been advisor to like every president since Carter, big Obama lover. He was a professor out at Johns Hopkins. Zbigniew Brzezinski did a book. It was called Second Chance, where he was really trying to push the Obama card prior to the 2008 election. And he said, listen, there's going to be a new world order. It's going to happen. He says, but the question is, who do you want to run it? And then he gives examples of how the Russians run their regime, the Chinese run their regime, and then basically us. This is down to these three powers. They're superpowers. We live in the age of superpowers. So which one do you want to run the new world order? And he's got some legitimate points. They're going to push for this new world order, but whose doctrine do you want to be running it? And so do the Russians have something to gain by sabotaging us? I absolutely think they do. I think that you need to follow the money. I think the Clintons are deeply tied to it. I think we need to look into something called the Qatari pipeline, and that would bring us answers to the Syrian crisis. I think there's a lot of answers out there that need to be answered, and it has to do with Russia.
For sure. Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. Anyway, I said it. Benji, I know Candy's got a question, but I'm going to let you ask it.
Yeah, she says she believes alien species are here, but is it possible that world government, Illuminati, or whatever, may be building a program, biological or otherwise, of their own, that they plan on terrorizing humankind to gain world control, causing chaos and panic?
I think that's very possible. Hell, I think that there's something on the moon that we're not supposed to see too. I mean, I don't know. I think that if we actually did go to the moon and there was something on the moon, there's a lot of evidence suggesting that there was somebody on the moon or is currently somebody on the moon, which would lead to why we'd probably try to nuke them a few years back. Anyhow, you can look into that. It's all legit. It happened. You know, we did launch a nuke to hit the moon probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I do think that we have been visited, as I said earlier. I don't know what the level of connection goes. I know Paul Hellyer believes that we are currently working with a species of extraterrestrials, and Paul Hellyer is a former Minister of Defense, and I think that there's probably more than one type. And I think that if you go back to ancient history, it would suggest that people have seen more than one type of entity, and they even classified them as good and evil. So I don't know. This goes all the way back to even the ancient Sumerian texts.
Yeah, which is extremely interesting, you know, to say the least. I don't know why someone's trying to call me when they probably know that I have a show. So I'm going to shut off Facebook on my tablet here. Understand, folks, that when I am in a show, I cannot answer questions. Make sure you listen. Anyway, I don't even know how the hell that happened. You know, it just happens. Maybe it's aliens. Hell, I don't know.
I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens.
It's aliens. I know where I was going to go with this. There's a lot of conspirators out there that state that these reptilians, you know, even the Clintons are reptilians.
Yeah.
Possible or total crap?
I don't buy into it. That's just me. I've seen a lot of the YouTube videos where like, oh my God, they're shape-shifting.
Have you seen her tongue though?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think Hillary's a reptile, but it's more in her heart than it is, you know, under her skin, you know.
Oh. You know,
boy.
if anybody, if Andy or I or Benji go missing in the next 24 hours, you know it was them.
Well, they can come get me.
I just have a single shot 20 gauge. No, I have more than that. Bring it on. Anyway.
Chuck, have you looked out your window recently to see the vans lining up?
Dude, I can't see out the window down here in the basement. You know, it's just it's aliens and ghosts behind me. You know, it's one of those things.
I'm always packing, so I welcome anybody.
Oh dear. Benji.
Yeah. I got
19
nothing.
minutes left. You
I got
surely
nothing,
got a
man.
question. Oh my God. You quiet dude, you.
I know. I mean, he's basically hitting on everything that I either wanted to know or I already know a little bit about. And it's nice to hear confirmation on some of these things. It's like, oh, hey, I'm not crazy.
I'm going to tell you right now, I never believed in any of this crap. I'm going to tell you right now, never. I would have never, if you would have rewound to probably a little more than 10 years ago, I would have said that everything that I'm saying is malarkey. But something changed, and I started going down that rabbit hole, and I started researching. And as the more I researched, the more I saw that there were too many facts that I couldn't dispute. And so, yeah, I guess I'm a conspiracy theorist now.
Have you ever had weird trolls or you know, whether they could be from the government or whatnot or whatever from that agenda? Have you ever had them try to contact you?
All right, so this has nothing to do with any of this, but my first book, basically I was on a show and I basically said I wasn't a big fan of the ninjas that were out there, you know, the guys that practice throw ninja stars and stuff. And I actually had some ninjas send me some hate mail threatening to jump out of a dumpster and kill me. So, yeah. It has nothing to do with this book, but it has to do with like my first book that I wrote. Yeah. So I was a ninja hater, said something about most ninjas are guys that like to dress up in PJs and live in their mom's basements and throw ninja stars at the wall. And basically, man, it brought out a lot of hate. So that I have had those trolls come out. Yeah.
Wow.
can't say that I've had ninjas jumping out of the vans trying to get me, but
well, they threatened it. It never happened. I was just like, yeah, whatever. You're still hiding in your mom's basement. I was egging it on, obviously, but it did happen.
Oh man, ninjas.
I am in a basement, but I'm not in mom's basement. I'm not gonna go after him like a ninja.
All right, Chuck. Chuck, I have a question for you from the chat room. I think it's a sarcastic one, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Is the movie E.T. based on a true story? Come on, Chuck. What do you got?
I look back at Spielberg and I see E.T. as he's got this pot belly, and unless the Greys had a drinking problem and had beer guts, I don't think that it can work out.
Oh.
And I'm being dead serious when I say it.
There was the Russian kids that they try to mismangle up. They try to make them look like aliens. They launched them. The Russians actually did a program like that. So that basically, you can read it. It's out there. The Russians had sometime back in like the 40s or 50s, I think it was the 50s, they had taken a bunch of kids and they had like mangled their faces up or whatever surgically and then put them in a rocket and launched them so that they would crash and then be found, and someone would be like, oh my God, these are aliens. And it really start to try to cause that distrust, like, holy cow, our government can't protect us from these things. So.
Do you think it's possible that that's what happened in Roswell, or do you think that's totally a separate incident?
I think I honestly believe that's a separate incident. I think that there's something to Roswell. I mean, listen, the initial headlines were like, hey, we've come in contact with a flying saucer. There's aliens. And then all of a sudden that quickly went away. And there's just too many eyewitnesses, and they can't cover up all the stuff behind Roswell.
I'm sorry. I'll get you in a minute. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, brother. Anyway, I actually did some serious investigation into this Roswell stuff. And, I went to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and actually contacted a few people that was supposedly involved in a couple of these books that I'd read as a kid. And I'm like 22, 23 years old, and I'm talking to these people. And I finally got a phone call, Andy, that says, you need to stop searching.
I'm not surprised.
And guess what? Chuck, stop searching.
Hell, your phone's probably still being tapped.
Yeah, probably. Hey,
Well-
you bastard.
Well, yeah, it's called Prism. I think Snowden outed that one.
Oh, jeez. Oh, you know what? We haven't even discussed that. All of these leakers and all that sort of stuff. And
Crazy. You can't listen. You can't keep a lid on all this stuff.
no,
You can't. Our government has grown so massive. It's bureaucracy within bureaucracy, and bureaucracies do what they do, and they feed themselves until they grow to be so massive. But you think you're going to try to keep a secret? Come on.
it goes all the way back to Julius and Ethel Rosenbergs, which, by the way, were ousted by a brother-in-law. And this guy was a lot more in deep as far as sharing information with the Soviets during that time to allow them to garner the atomic bomb. But these Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, Ethel didn't even have much involvement, and she's put to death. Whereas today you can almost leak anything, and you're like, oh, you're a god. And all that started out with the Pentagon Papers. When you look at that, I don't know. It's crazy.
Hey, man, look at Bradley Manning, okay, or Chelsea Manning, or whatever he's going by today. That guy's about to run for, like, Congress or something. He's got, like, serious backing. The dude, the combat files or the battle files or war files for WikiLeaks, that all came from Manning. And, which, by the way, my old team is mentioned on there a couple times.
Seriously?
Swear to God.
Oh, man.
I can't tell you what it was under, but it was a pseudonym that we used for our Operational Detachment Alpha, which there's no way existed. And everyone's like, who the hell are these guys? It was us. And it's in there more than once.
Crazy.
And there's a lot of people that think that that's malarkey, but they haven't taken the time to read that stuff.
I went into it and I just typed in my ODA, and then I typed in our pseudonym ODA that we used to go by, and it came up under the pseudonym, which I know who we really are, and I'm like, holy cow, we're in the freaking WikiLeaks.
See, you're a legend even beyond 1984. You're in WikiLeaks, for Christ's sake.
Well, none of our names are mentioned, but there's incidents that we were involved in that basically it comes from our reports that we sent up to hire. And I'm like, holy cow, that's us.
I know we only have a few minutes, but I definitely want to put this to bed. Now, Benji, you wanted to make a statement or something, and I totally overstepped. I apologize.
I don't even remember what it was for. I think it was the whole Roswell thing, and yeah, that's what it was. It was we were talking about the whole Roswell thing. I was going to throw out my personal opinion on that is that something definitely happened in Roswell. I think that I personally feel that what it is most famous for, or everything that's been reported from there, may not necessarily be what happened. I feel like maybe some of those reports that came out from the area are to cover up something else that really did happen. And so, like, everyone's all on the whole alien craze at Roswell. Yeah, I think something related to aliens happened there, but I think what did happen is not what is being said happened. Does that make sense?
I don't think we'll ever know.
I highly doubt we ever will.
Yeah. You know, it's been so convoluted at this point. Even if they came out and told me the truth, I'd be like, you're lying.
Right?
I mean, how do you know anymore? You just don't know. Who do you trust? You once you get lied to so much, you're just like, somebody could tell you the truth. You know, I had a stepdaughter. She lied all the time. And even when she was telling the truth, and I'm pretty good at detecting lies, I'm like, no, you're lying. Because she lied so much, she almost like couldn't tell the truth, to the point where now I can't trust anything that comes out of her.
Jeez.
Man alive. I tell you, I think that Michael Jackson and Elvis crashed in Roswell, and it created a stir.
Elvis still lives, man.
Yeah, he's the janitor or whatever. You know, they took a picture of him. I saw it. Shit.
What's that famous movie quote? Elvis ain't dead. He just went home.
Yeah,
What?
exactly. No. Let me tell you, I've been to Graceland. I don't know if I'd call that home. Let me tell you, if you go to Graceland, bring one of these with you because you're going to need it probably.
Oh man, I tell you, I'll definitely have you back. I've always had you back, time and time again. But we're getting down to the nitty gritty here, and I want you to share with everybody. Actually, you don't want to share where they can follow you or whatever, but definitely follow your page.
Yeah. I have a page that hasn't been booted off yet. So I've got about 36 followers, and hopefully it's climbing. But, follow me on Facebook. It's under my name, Andy Curtis. I've got a blog out there. It's linked to the Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Like I said, reach out, talk to me. Let's hear some of your responses to some of my outlandish stuff that I put out there. They're too rough.
There are times where I want to share it, but then I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah, listen. If you're gonna go to my page, have some thick skin.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to tell you other than that.
Well, other than you say it like you mean it, and it's the truth. It's one of those things. Now we do this every show, my friend. We always go with a final thought, but we'll call it a final thought until we have Chuck Banks and Benji. And I would say is this the fourth time?
Oh, Chuck, I know we've been together a lot.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're practically married, and it's legal in America.
Hey, man, I identify as an elephant.
Yeah. Well, I identify as an elephant as well, but it's more along I just told everybody affiliation. Damn it. Anyway, if you're still butthurt, send mail to Andy Curtis at blah 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 blah. Anyway.
I can't guarantee the response.
Well, give everybody a final thought, brother.
Oh man, I want a beer.
That's a good final thought. That's a very good final thought because I'm kind of thinking the same thing. Oh, jeez. All right, I'm going to get this done and out of the way.
Guys,
this
thank
is a
you.
Quote.
Thank you very much.
Love you, brother.
This is a quote from Francis of Assisi or something along those lines. I'm not really good at pronouncing odd names, but this is something I found earlier today that I feel does ring fairly true. Start by doing what's necessary. then do what's possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible.
Steep.
Very
Pretty
deep.
good.
Chuck?
I'm going to go with a Ronald Reagan quote. You ready for this? We can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone.
Ooh.
Nice.
That's pretty damn deep.
Yes, it is. I still go with the beer, guys. I want the beer.
Yep. No, absolutely. That's I find that one to be very deep and heartening too. No.
Hey, I will share your Andy Curtis page on our website to make sure we can get more than 36 followers.
Cool. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
Make sure we get that going. But with everyone, wait. Benji, the sexy voice of the network, you need to share all of our shows.
Oh man, you would ask me to do that, and I'm not even prepared for it. Hold on here, just a second. Give me a second to get it pulled up. I don't have all the times though. You need to get me all the times at some point in time here, because we do have a new show that's going to start on Tuesdays, but I don't know what time it starts on Tuesdays.
8:30 Central.
8:30 Central.
Yep.
All right, so. Monday nights, the third Monday, or the first Monday of every month is Beyond the Light Paranormal Talk with myself. The third Monday of every month is Haruko with my wife, Brittany. Both shows are at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, or 5 Pacific. Tuesday nights, you said 8:30 Central? Yep. 8:30 Central, so 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific. The Edge of the Rabbit Hole. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
Yep, The Edge of the Rabbit Hole. That's Mike Rixier?
Rick, I call him Seeker. It's probably Seeker. And while you're saying that, I do want to say that we're sending out healing to Shauna that had a procedure this past week.
Yep, absolutely. Then on Wednesday nights, Experiences Within the Light with Candy Orton, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central, 4:30 Pacific. Thursdays, Introspection with Matt Bennett, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, 6:30 Pacific. Fridays and Saturday nights. Friday is 9, 8, and 6. 9 Eastern, 8 Central, 6 Pacific. I got to get my time zones here right. Holy crap. And then on Saturday nights, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, 6:30 Pacific is Dark Knight Radio. Then before that, on Saturdays, Psychic Divination Hour, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 5 Pacific. And Sundays, Sunday Fun Day, at the end of the day, with Chuck and Benji, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 5 Pacific. For information regarding all shows offered, visit BeyondTheLightNetwork.com. Listen live from the BeyondTheLightNetwork.com shows tab. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter.
Say back to you, Chuck. Do it.
Back to you, Chuck.
Okay. I love that. Anyway, next week we're gonna go into voodoo, darkness and the light voodoo with Manbo La Meltrice. I hope I pronunciated her name correctly. That's going to be different, definitely. But at the end of the day, who the hell knows what's going to come through our lips? For everybody on the Beyond the Light Radio Network, we love you. Peace out, Girl Scout. Good night.